Have y'all noticed when you drive on IH-10 or IH-35 or 1604, have you noticed there's no toll booths?
Yay!
Well, I'll tell you who I give the credit to is Terri Hall.
All right.
She's the one that's been fighting this for years, and of course it keeps rearing its ugly head, just like light rail's getting ready to come back. But Terri, we really appreciate it. Her organization is called TURF, and we really need to support TURF. It's very expensive. I know Terri kind of has to camp out there in Austin during the legislative sessions, which is extremely difficult. How many kids do you have? 10 kids.
No way.
That's a lot. Hopefully they're all conservatives.
It's a requirement.
Bexar County is the last, well I should say San Antonio, is the last urban area in our state to not have any toll roads.
Yay!
We're the only one left. El Paso has a couple now. I mean, literally every major metro area in the state of Texas is getting flooded with this taxation. So, but first I wanted to start local, then we're going to go global, a little bit global in the sense of the legislature. Because the City Council, as you probably heard, just recently adopted what's called the Climate Adaptation Plan. And that was adopted by a vote of 10-1. And this is what's always confounded me. You know, this mayor was barely re-elected, yet he's acting like a dictator and ramming this through. Very controversial, and I honestly thought this was going to get defeated or just never brought up for a vote. Because almost the entire business community is against this. And I was laughing. I was at some chamber event. You know, I go to all these events and just kind of hold my nose because I want to hear what the other side's saying and what they're doing, what they're thinking. And so everyone in the room is working against what we want. But I go to kind of do intel. Okay, so I'm like CIA for transportation. Okay, so I'm in this meeting and this lobbyist who has like been on the wrong side of the toll issue for 15 years. And he kind of comes over to me and goes, well, where's TURF on this climate adaptation plan thing? I said, we're totally opposed to it. We've been fighting this stuff in this thing for a long, long time because it was before it was a formal plan. They've been trying to put this in little by little in all kinds of ways in San Antonio long before now. Well, he goes, you know, because the business community really opposes this. And I'm like, okay, and what's your reason? I mean, I kind of knew what our reasons, but I wanted to hear his. And he goes, well, gosh, it's really anti-car.
Hello.
I'm like, woohoo, where y'all been? I've been saying this stuff forever. You know, so I'm just like, for once we're saying the same thing, we're on the same page. So I thought, for sure this thing's gonna die. Because you know how it is in this town. If the business community's for something, it passes. If they're against something, it goes down. So I am like, I'm still in shock that this thing passed. There is something even more powerful than the business interests in this town that is pushing this through. So I'm going to go into a little bit of at least the transportation part. Now there's a lot of things that affect your power, and probably water, and all kinds of other things. And by the way, I did share with Renette, we were on the front lines on Vista Ridge fighting this because it's a public-private partnership for years, and so we're supposed to be on that coalition already. I want you to know TURF is totally on board with everything that y'all are doing, and we're going to do everything we can to help stop it. But the Climate Adaptation Plan, they actually state what the reason for it is. They claim it's to reduce San Antonio's greenhouse gas emissions. Now the scary part is in yellow. By adapting the city to the effects of climate change. So they want you to adapt your entire life to fight climate change. So on June 22nd of 2017, just weeks after President Trump got us out of the Paris Agreement, which most of us were cheering that the president took us out of the Paris treaty, or agreement, it's not a treaty, the San Antonio City Council passed its own resolution in support of the Mayor's National Climate Action Agenda, which is a commitment, this should frighten all of us, by over 400 U.S. mayors. Now, do you think this just happened within days of the climate treaty or the Paris Agreement us being pulled out of that. This was already in the works. We have a war taking place between local government and our state and federal government right now. Our local cities, no question, are progressive, complete radicals, just about run most of these cities. And San Antonio is no different than that. And so this is 400 mayors overnight get their councils to pass a resolution, literally to thumb their nose at the Trump administration taking us out of the Paris climate agreement. And the San Antonio Climate Adaptation Plan brings this commitment to life. So it basically puts the Paris Accord emissions controls on all of our cities in Texas, supposedly red state Texas, through the local governments. And it provides a roadmap for the necessary greenhouse gas emission reductions. That's what GHG stands for, greenhouse gas emission reductions, to meet the goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. Now, many of us won't even be around in 2050, but this is getting us toward that by 2050. So that means they're doing things right now today to start slowly working everybody toward carbon neutral. Well, let's talk about what does carbon neutral even mean, right? Let's just look at the transportation part of this, okay, because that's kind of my area of expertise. This is what they want us to do. It's on page 35 of the Climate Adaptation Plan. Reduce transportation energy consumption. As a car-centric city, San Antonio will need to utilize smart initiatives to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, including promoting the use of greener vehicle technologies and, in yellow, reducing your vehicle miles traveled. They're going to punish you for driving solo in your car. Okay, but make that clear right now. Through transforming and integrating an existing transportation networks, okay? So that means your existing roads and highways as you use them today, all that's going to be off the table real soon. They're going to start making it very difficult for you to drive around solo in your own car. And it gets even worse. I'm so sorry to share the bad news. What does carbon neutrality actually mean? Here's their mitigation strategies. That means this is their solutions, okay? They're going to end personal vehicular travel. They're going to force the masses to be dependent on hiring a rideshare service like Uber or Lyft, or you're going to have to walk, bike, or get on mass transit. This is on page 38. These aren't my words. This isn't some, oh, tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. This is their document. Number 9 on their list, carbon-free vehicles. Let's just talk about how much a carbon-free vehicle costs. How many of you own a Tesla? Anyone? Well, maybe it's because they're close to $100,000 for a Tesla. So how many people can afford a carbon-neutral car? How many of you could go out and purchase one tomorrow because the city's going to mandate carbon neutrality by 2050? Okay, most people can't. And in fact, San Antonio is one of the highest percentage of people here that cannot even afford to own a car now. At the prices we have today, much less a carbon neutral vehicle. They want to transition us to carbon-free transport by implementing strategies to accelerate the adoption of electric or other carbon-free personal vehicles, and trucks, and transit, and all freight to reach 100% penetration by 2050. That means every form of transportation will have to be carbon neutral. And actually a pretty short amount of time. To us, it may not seem like it's that, like it's a long horizon, but it's really not. Number 10 on their list was vehicle miles traveled. They want to reduce your vehicle miles traveled per person throughout the city. Now, first of all, how do they get a hold of the data to know your own personal vehicle miles traveled, to know if it's been reduced or not? The government has to control and find out and get data on you in order to know if your personal allotment of vehicle miles traveled has in fact been reduced. Right? Isn't that what we read into this? They have to have the data in order to say that you've reduced your vehicle miles traveled. Guess how they get the data?
A chip?
Right here.
Whoa.
Unless you have disabled your Bluetooth abilities on your phone at all times, they can already track you on this. In fact, there was a study that was being done on traffic counts on I-35 on one of the TxDOT road projects. This was, I don't know, 3 or 5 years ago, something like that. And I'm in this room with all these transportation planners, people from the cities, people from county, because we have multiple cities within San Antonio, not just San Antonio. And they're all there, and I finally just kind of asked the question, I'm like, how are you getting this data? And they had to admit they're getting it off people's Bluetooth. I said, without our permission?
Uh-oh.
And then I said, you know how dangerous that is, right? And they were literally following trip data unique to you. They said, oh, it's not, we don't know that it's your phone, Terry. We're just picking up the data and using it. I said, oh, no. Anybody can, I'm talking, you do a Google search and they can find your unique data point on your smartphone to be able to identify you. And I said, how about a female? Let's just think about it in personal safety. You're going to know when I leave my house so that any robber can come in and start pilfering, stealing. They'll know when I'm leaving work and when they can jump me in the parking lot. And they're just all looking at me like, and we ended up having the governor come down on them because they were taking data, in my view, illegally from people that is unique data to us without our permission and using it for trip data just for a simple expansion of a road project. Well, imagine what they're going to do with it with this climate adaptation plan. And here's the big thing, because this is how it relates to the toll stuff. They're going to reduce your vehicle miles traveled per person throughout the city, but they're going to prioritize the reduction of those traveled in single occupancy vehicles. You are not going to be allowed to drive solo alone in your car. And they're going to do it by diversifying your transportation choices. That means get you out of your car and into mass transit, in a ride share, or you're going to have to walk and bike everywhere. Okay, because that's all part of this sustainability stuff. And the way they're going to do some of this is with HOV lanes. Okay? Number 11 is connectivity and walkability. Now, I don't mind getting out and walking for exercise and enjoying nature, walks with my kids, and that sort of thing. But walking as a means of commuting, that's a whole different story. How many of you could commute to work by walking? Not too many. Maybe if you work from home, right? Okay, that works. But they want to accelerate connectivity and walkability by prioritizing the funding and construction of infrastructure for micro-mobility modes. Well, there's a new term for you. What's micro-mobility? Biking and human-powered transportation. Okay, we're going to go back to elementary school. We're going to have human-powered transportation with an emphasis on the protection of vulnerable road users. So that means, here's what they did in California, what that means. I'm going to translate all this because they've already done all this in California. We've already seen how well that's worked. They'll put in pedestrian islands at all your intersections. They will have a curbing jut way out into your car lanes to basically impede auto travel, to give enough of a buffer to make all those people standing there at a bus stop or waiting for their ride share to have a safe place to stand and wait. They're going to put in all kinds of roadblocks and interference to anyone driving solo in a car. I'm just telling you that right now. And they're going to end car ownership. Number 13, mobility is going to be a service. They're going to take away your individual right to a car. They're going to utilize smart city and big data solutions. Doesn't that sound like something you want? Big data. I'm like, if that ain't nanny state big government right there and right in, I don't know what is. And it's to promote mobility as a service to reduce the greenhouse gas impact on transportation solutions. Okay, here's the actual facts about climate change. Okay, that's what their reason is, that's what they're claiming is the reason. The U.S. has reduced our emissions of the 6 criteria pollutants listed in the Clean Air Act by 73% since 1970. We're some of the cleanest energy country in the modern world. The U.S. is not the problem. If there is a problem out there, which that's debatable, if there's even a climate change issue, if there's a problem, it is not us that is creating this problem. And us all getting out of our cars and getting on a bike or walking everywhere is not going to solve one stitch of climate change problems or pollution or emissions or whatever. These improvements have come as our U.S. GDP has grown by 262%. And energy consumption's even grown by 44%, yet our emissions have gone way down. So this is not a U.S. problem. But this is going to increase our costs. How many of you have heard of our premier think tank in Texas known as the Texas Public Policy Foundation?
Yes.
Very good. I'm glad you've heard of them. They have a new area of their think tank called Life Powered because they see what's going on with this Green New Deal with AOC and everybody, right? Pushing this down at every level through the local governments, these liberal mayors. They determine the Green New Deal will increase the cost of your electricity by more than 900%.
Ouch. Whoa.
And it's going to kill over 1 million jobs. Now let's bring it down to Texas. Texas families and our businesses, our economy cannot afford it. And here's the best part. None of the stuff they're proposing in the city's climate adaptation plan or in the Green New Deal at the AOC federal level is going to do one thing to actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The new research shows that the Green New Deal would actually increase Texans' annual electricity bills to nearly $14,000 a year. In San Antonio, they predict at least $1,000 more per year.
Ouch.
The Alamo City's climate change plan will cost over $1 billion for no environmental benefit. Because look here. Oh, that's my next slide, sorry. But the TPPF did a poll here in San Antonio and asked whether voters would support or oppose a proposal requiring them to give up their current vehicle and buy a new carbon-free one or switch to public transportation, biking, or walking. This shouldn't surprise us. 66% of San Antonio voters said they would oppose such a plan. And all of them said they wouldn't support any plan that cost them more. So when you actually give them details and you actually share with people the cost of all these proposals instead of just, oh, let's save the polar bears and it sounds so good. Well, once you actually realize how much it's going to cost you personally, well then suddenly, oh, no, I'm not for that. So we have a little hypocrisy going on. But here's the slide. It's not going to even affect global temperatures, even if the entire United States power sector eliminated all carbon dioxide emissions over the next 10 years. The United Nations worst case scenario data, this isn't our data, this is the UN data. Models project that the global temperatures would only decrease by 0.04 degrees.
Ouch.
By 2100. The year 2100. We'd only get a 0.04 degree difference. This is not the United States. We can't even talk about climate change, if you even believe it's true, without addressing India and China. This is a joke. This is about government exerting control over your everyday life.
Yep.
And they're using this as an excuse to do that.
Yep.
That's all this is. And sadly, this means tolls are likely in the future for San Antonio, whether we fight back or not. We ended San Antonio's toll plans for now. After 15-year fight, multiple lawsuits, I've been up in the legislature for 8 sessions. You would not believe what I've had to personally sacrifice to get this a toll-free city. Okay? But they have refused to drop it. And one of the things, even though we got the tolls off 281 and I-10, 1604, and 35, they're still expanding those lanes and making them HOV lanes. That's high occupancy vehicle, in other words, carpool lanes, and they're literally calling them transit lanes. So they want, and they actually said this at the MPO, which is the local transportation policy board, they actually admitted they want these lanes so that the buses can get where they need to go on time and keep the cars out of it. And I'm going, oh, so 99.9% of people that drive alone in their vehicles aren't allowed to get where they need to go on time. We're going to force the not even 3% of people that use the bus to get where they need to go on time. So that's the plan. They want to take all these lanes they're going to be putting on I-10, 281, 1604. There's going to be an HOV element on every single one of those. HOV lanes started 35, 40 years ago in places like California. Dallas has had them a lot longer. Houston's had them a lot longer. Absolute abject failure. All the studies show that it has no meaningful increase in carpooling when you put in an HOV lane. So what you end up with is a massively underutilized lane that cost us billions of dollars in our tax money to build.
Yep.
So it's stupidity on top of stupidity, okay? It's ineffective, it doesn't work. They know it, they actually testify to this in all kinds of transportation hearings that I've been a witness to. So why are they doing it, right? Well, to me, I think the locals are waiting us out until we no longer have Governor Abbott saying no more tolls, because frankly, he's the only reason why we've been able to get this success. Because you know what happened under Rick Perry. There was no way to stop that train. I mean, we delayed it as long as we could, but if it hadn't been for Abbott coming in and actually campaigning against toll roads, there would be tolls on every one of our highways already, and we'd be paying them to a foreign company for 50 plus years. And you know how much they're charging people to use those 4 toll lanes up in Dallas-Fort Worth right now? In peak hours, it exceeds $3 a mile.
Whoa.
Ouch.
$3 a mile, folks.
It's $22 for the Austin.
Yes, and that's publicly operated. The southern stretch of State Highway 130 is still a foreign company. But the northern stretch, from say like the airport around to Georgetown, that's still operated by TxDOT, and it's still very expensive. Absolutely. And if you're in a truck, they charge you by the axle, so it's even more. It'll cost a truck $86 to take State Highway 130 to bypass I-35. So you wonder why you're stuck behind 18-wheelers all the way to Austin on 35? Truckers can't afford it any more than we can. $86 every time you make a trip through there? No. They're not going to pay it. So what I think is happening is they are priming this area to eventually have tolls by flipping a switch somewhere down the road and turn every HOV lane. They're going to say, these are underutilized, you guys. We could get more people to use those lanes if we allow some of those single occupancy cars, those evil cars, if they pay us a premium, we'll go ahead and let them use those lanes. So I think that's what's coming. And they'll use the climate plan as an excuse. What they're doing is they're creating scarcity so that they can raise your rates on everything, whether it's driving, water, electric, it doesn't matter. They're creating scarcity. Right now we have ubiquitous and abundance, but they're going to take all that away because they want control. Because remember, Abbott promised we're going to fix Texas roads without raising taxes, fees, tolls, and without new debt. And he reiterated it multiple times, and I cite some of the sources there. So let's transition a little bit to the legislature. What were we doing up there the first 6 months of the year? Well, we've had the top 3 priorities. We've had different priorities, different sessions. In fact, in 2017 was our most successful session ever because we basically took 9 of our bills and got 7 of them turned into amendments that got tacked onto a must-pass bill. So we got like, you wouldn't believe what we got. But it was really good, very successful, and we were starting to lock down some of their money sources for using these toll roads because all of them are taxpayer subsidized, folks. We have already spent $10 billion in your gas taxes and other public funds to subsidize toll roads that can't pay for themselves. This is a huge Robin Hood socialist system that's no different from anything else you see in big government. So many people think the toll you're paying is paying for the lanes you're driving on. That is a complete fallacy. And we can show all the documents that have that. You can look on our website at any time because I could almost bury you with that stuff. So our top 3 priorities for this session is get the toll off the road when it's paid for, because now we're having perpetual tolls in some of these areas that have had them way too long already. Toll collection reform. How many of you have gotten a toll bill? Like around 130 or whatever, right? Have you had fines and fees tacked onto it? Yes. Have you had your vehicle registration blocked? Have your car been impounded and you've been stuck on the side of the road because they take your car from you? That's what they're doing to Texans. By the hundreds of thousands. In fact, there's millions of Texans that have already been put into collections over unpaid tolls. 2 million by TxDOT alone. And TxDOT only operates 3 projects. 2 million. That is more than the population of the city of San Antonio at this point. Had been putting collections over this. Then our third thing was stop the expansion of any more, because every session, it doesn't matter that the governor said no more tolls. Nobody ever believes anybody, because they just know if they schmooze them long enough, they can get them to weaken the chink in the armor somewhere, and they'll get some projects through, which they've actually done. On Abbott's watch, we've still had some toll roads going up. The excuse they say at the commission is, oh, these were already on the books, so we're grandfathering them in. It's really not breaking that governor's promise. Oh, really? To me, if it wasn't open as a toll road or under construction as a toll road at the time he took office, then it's a new toll road.
Yes.
Period. That's an easy definition. But no, they want to play around with all this stuff. So every session, they not only have something to push tons more toll roads, the ones that try to privatize and toll your roads. And that's just like a Vista Ridge, where they have the private entity team up with big government to give those private entities a monopoly for generations. They all go for 50, 100, some of these leases can be 100 years on the water. And we will never get out of them. And we can't control them because, as you know, they're not elected. So why do we care about taking the toll off the road when it's paid for? Well, one, the Texas Constitution protects us from perpetuities. Did you know that? Article 1, Section 26 of the Texas Constitution prohibits monopolies and perpetuities. And these toll projects bring us both. So it's a violation of the Constitution, and we keep trying to say that they need to get state statute in line with that Constitution. Well, there's something that they put together, this sneaky little thing that's called system financing. What they're doing is they're linking the toll revenues from one road to get the bond debt issued for another road, so that you can never take the tolls off road A, because now they need that toll revenue to support the bond debt for the second road. And then they do it again and again and again, and they link the whole thing into one financial system, so that when we actually had traction in 2017, even 2015 session, where we had legislators on my side arguing, we got to get the tolls off these roads that are paid for, because we proved there were several toll roads that are still charging tolls on roads that are 100% paid for. And we were trying to get the tolls at least off those first. And they were told to our elected officials, guess what? We can't take the tolls off 130 now, because we just refinanced our debt, linked it all together as a system, and now you'd have to pay off $2.1 billion in bond debt in order to get the tolls off 130 that had been paid for. So this is the nightmare we're creating. They're going to create perpetual debt, and they're going to make sure they refinance the debt into perpetuity so that nothing's ever paid for. That's all they have to do. Just look at schools. They do it all day long with their bond debt. Are they ever going to actually be in the black even with no bond debt in a school in this state? Not likely. They're just going to keep going with these debt packages. And guess who gets all the money on that? Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley,
Oh boy.
you name it. All those big global banks, because they just cha-ching, they don't care how much you refinance the debt. Oh, we'll give you a better deal, we'll give you a better interest rate. Oh, but you're going to extend the loan for another 20 years. So that's more money out of the taxpayer's pocket. So none of the current toll systems up and running around the state of Texas can survive if we stop system financing. So they know that this is the ace in the hole that will kill all the toll roads around the state. And that's why they fight me so hard to stop this bill from getting any traction. And it's why they won't drop the HOV lanes everywhere, because they need it to be a whole system. Because they knew that 281 wasn't enough to get toll revenue, I-10 by itself, even 1604 by itself, even I-35 by itself, could not get enough people paying a toll on a daily basis to pay for the bond debt. They need a Robin Hood socialist system where they raid from everybody to go pay for the parts of the system that can't pay for themselves. That's the whole plan. So what happened? We had our bill by Representative Shaheen on the House side and Senator Hall and Cole Korst on the Senate side to take the toll off the road and end this nightmare. Cole Korst has carried that bill for us for 5 sessions. We've had a hearing on it twice. It's never had a vote to get out of committee. Ever. In 5 sessions. Guess what 5 sessions means? That's 10 years right there. Okay, so what leadership did in the House is they took our bill on the toll cessation and stuck it in a subcommittee on tolling, and they did it so late in the session it was never going to have a prayer passing anyway. But that's also, for anyone who knows much about how the legislature works, committees, subcommittees, that's where they send a bill to die. Because now your bill has to get out of the subcommittee, then it has to come before a vote of the full committee, then it has to get voted out of that committee, then it goes to calendars where it can get failed again, it has to get voted out of that committee. Now you gotta get it out of 3 committees before you can even get it to a floor vote in the House. So it's just a way to appease people, they think, which they should know I'm not gonna fall for that, but at the end of the day, they try anyway. And that's despite the groundswell of support to take the toll off the road when it's paid for, because guess what, folks? We worked really hard to get it in the GOP platform. And last I checked, we're still the majority in this state.
Yeah.
But do they listen to the GOP platform, or do we the people? Apparently not. So never even got a hearing in the Senate, because guess what? Robert Nichols, who runs that committee, is a former TxDOT commissioner.
Oh, boy.
So on the House side, I thought I had some hope at the beginning of the session, because Terry Canales, who's from Hidalgo County in the Valley, anyone know about Edinburgh, Mayor of Edinburgh lately? Anyone hear the stories about that? Huge voter fraud case. He stuffed the ballot box for himself to get reelected. So they have major problems going on in this guy's hometown. So just a little bit of that valley corruption might have touched him a little bit this session, because here's what he promised me when he asked for my endorsement in 2012. I do not support any form of tolling. I don't like the concept or practice of building toll roads. I think it's highly unfair to the taxpayers to be burdened by toll roads, which have already been built and paid for by their tax dollars. He went on and on. There was all kinds of great questions where he said, I am so anti-toll. I am so in your camp, Terry. Then he became the House committee chair and basically made sure that my bills went nowhere. So all these guys betray us. I don't care what they tell you. You can get it in writing. You can get it written in blood. You can promise your firstborn. It doesn't matter. The lobby is alive and well, and it is powerful. So our second priority was toll collection reform. Now the big ace in our, well, I should say feather in our cap from 2017 was on the TxDOT sunset bill. We got a lot of our legislation tacked onto it successfully, which shows when I can get it to the floor, they all know they had better vote the right way on this. They know it. I'm telling you, people that would never support me otherwise, if they got to do a record vote and have that little light up and have it show up on their journal of the House, they're going to vote the right way on toll roads, because they know in the urban areas especially how unpopular this is. I don't care if you are Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Green Party, everyone's impacted by this. It is a huge tax burden on everybody. So what we got was only the TxDOT operated toll roads. Unfortunately, because it was a TxDOT bill, it only applied to the agency. We couldn't make it apply to the other 13 toll agencies all around the state of Texas. One of them is here in San Antonio called the Alamo Regional Mobility Authority, that's now run by Bexar County. And at the end of the day, these are all huge mega bureaucracies that we can't control because they're unelected boards that are imposing massive amounts of new taxes on everybody. So it's a bad deal. But we wanted to get a precedent. We wanted to at least get, to the first yard line or 10-yard line, whatever. So we got a cap on toll fines and fees at $48 a year and a $250 cap on any civil fines. So we tried to decriminalize it. Do you know that in the state of Texas, you are considered a criminal for an unpaid toll bill? Did you know that? Okay, that's the administrative state taking over your life.
What about debtor's prison?
Exactly, it's a debtor's prison. And it was so funny. There was he's now a congressman, up in Congress, but he was a senator, Van Taylor, who was on Senate Transportation in 2017. And I brought that very point up when I was trying to get our toll collection reform bill passed out of that committee. And he goes, just name one instance, Terry, where someone's ever had to go to jail over an unpaid toll. I said, I have it for you, sir. It's up in your area, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I will get you the link to the Dallas Morning News article when we get out of this committee hearing. And I sent it to the whole entire committee, and I'm telling you, he was so flabbergasted, he did not know what to say after that. Because he honestly thought that, oh no, we don't have debtors' prisons. What are you talking about, Terry? It was a single mom. It was a single mom who couldn't pay the toll bill and couldn't take the time off work to show up to court to deal with all this mess. And she actually did get put in jail over an unpaid toll bill. Now, most people don't let it get to that point, but I'll tell you, I've actually heard candidates who have knocked on the doors in districts like Kaufman County, Hunt County, like outside the Dallas area. that were all hot under the collar over this toll issue because they're paying their kids' toll bills who live in Dallas, in the Fort Worth area. Because it's that much money. I know another single lady who had taken out 2 different loans to pay her toll bill to keep her car.
Ouch.
Okay, so this is a massive, massive problem that's happening, and they are using the fines and fees that they tack onto a bill that can be $3, $10, $25, turns into $3,000, $10,000. Now, how quickly can you get a toll bill paid? If you're the state or the city or one of these entities, right? How quickly can you get that bill paid if you take away that person's ability to get to work? How smart is that? I don't think these people have it all there upstairs. I don't understand how you can think that this is good policy, because it sure isn't. So at the end of the day, they repealed something this session that gives me a glimmer of hope that we can get this all done and applied to all the other agencies next time. And that is the driver responsibility program. Everybody ever heard of that?
No.
It mostly applies to drunk driving violations, but it can be other types of repeated, like moving violations and things like that. But if you have a certain number of those happen on your record, you have to pay a surcharge every year to the state of Texas for the privilege of bailing yourself out of that situation. Well, what happens is it's so high that people can't hang on to their driver's license and drive legally. So now you have a whole bunch of people that already have a drinking problem that are now having trouble hanging onto their car and getting to work. So after, and I've watched this for at least 10 years, 5 sessions, where they've been, I've had judges in there. They're begging to repeal this driver responsibility program because all it's doing is creating a cycle of unpayable bills for pretty much middle class and poor people. And so finally this session, they repealed the driver responsibility program and they decriminalized that. So that's what we've been asking for. You need to decriminalize an unpaid toll bill because it relates to debtors' prisons. It's unconstitutional. And then how likely is that person to pay their toll bill when now you've taken their car that they probably owe money on, they probably have to make payments on that car, and now you've impounded it and put a lien on it, and that's $1,200 to get it out of being impounded, plus they owe $3,000 to $5,000 in the toll bill. Every month they can't pay is more interest, more fines, more fees. You tell me how much this system's going to work for most people. Do you have $10,000 laying around to bail yourself out of this mess? It's a bad deal. TxDOT alone has put over 2 million Texans in collections over unpaid tolls. We have got to get this fixed. It's a huge problem. So here's what happened. We finally get, we already had on the House side, Senator Bob Hall, and again, Lois Cole, of course, filed it on the Senate side, but I needed a House bill. You have a much better chance of a bill passing if you've got a House and a Senate version. And so Cole Hefner, we finally got him to agree to carry the House version. Well, then I find out through the grapevine of my relationships with committee clerks and staffers and things, that he actually asked specifically that it never be brought up for a hearing. So he deep sixed our bill. And this is supposed to be a conservative who, again, asked for my endorsement when he ran for election. And this is in spite of the fact that when we got that TxDOT one that capped the fines and fees, they voted to not only cap the fines and fees, but to decriminalize by a vote of 136 to 3 in the House. Has massive support, but it's leadership and all these political games that keep deep sixing our stuff. So, TxDOT just expanded their criminal penalties. This is why we have to end the criminal penalties after 2 written notices. It doesn't even have to be 30 days between the notices. If you get 100 unpaid toll events, well, guess what that means? That just means every time you pass under a toll camera. That's not trips per day. So you could have 10 violations on your way to work, 10 violations on your way home. Guess what? The #1 way is people get a toll violation. Their payment card expires and the agencies don't have to notify you when they're pinging your card and there's money on it. So that is the #1 problem. These aren't people that are trying to skip paying tolls. These are just ordinary people like you and I who have a certain card attached to their toll tag account. You know how it is if there's a fraud alert, whatever, your bank will send you out a new card. You don't immediately think to notify the toll agency till maybe your monthly bill comes. Well, by then, you have well over 100 toll transactions that have been unpaid. and they can block your vehicle registration, impound your car on the spot, and none of this stuff prevents you from losing your car over unpaid tolls. The third thing was we wanted to stop the expansion of more toll roads. And it's being hijacked by some things, but Jack's telling me my time is up. But at the end of the day, right now today, the governor has said no more tolls moving forward. So what happened was there's now a lobbyist that's paid for by the city of Austin and by Sintra and a whole bunch of these public-private partnership type interests that want to take over our public highways and give them to these private interests that we can't control. They are lobbying hard to say, oh, here's our foot in the door to get tolls. There was a Prop 2 ballot on the Republican primary ballot last year. These are non-binding resolutions. Those are the kind that are the non-binding ones. It's just, here's what the Republicans think about these things to signal to our legislators what we think. Someone had put together this thing, I didn't support it for this reason, that said, we will not do any toll roads in this state without the public vote. Okay? So that's their foot in the door to now say, oh, we'll just tell everybody we can get toll roads back online by saying that we'll just have a public vote on it. Now, how do you think that public vote's going to work on a state highway that runs through the whole state of Texas? You can't call a local vote on just the 281 segment. First of all, you have people from Comal and other counties that come into San Antonio on that road. So if you only hold the vote in Bexar County, what about all the people that use it in Comal County? Are you going to call a vote in both places? Then think school bond elections. How often do you win a school bond election? To defeat bonds?
Never.
Not very often. And if you do, what happens 5 years after you defeated the bond? They bring it back. That's what TxDOT's going to do with a public vote. They'll let you vote on it, sure, but we're never going to fix your road. You're going to sit in traffic. It's going to get worse and worse and worse until you cry uncle and beg us for a toll road. So we knew they were going to come back this session with a vengeance, the special interest, and try and get some kind of a bill that had a vote on toll roads in it. And sure enough, it came in 1951 by a Freedom Caucus member of all people. They used one of our own against me. His name is Matt Krause. And it had not only that, it put in there public-private partnerships, they're known as CDAs in Texas, but public-private partnership toll roads over $1 billion would be authorized by that bill, unlimited with no sunset forever. And it was called the Toll Payer Protection Act, when they're going to put unlimited toll roads in there. And there was a whole bunch of other gimmicks in there that were really, really bad. Thankfully, we killed that bill. And guess what? There were 9 other bills to do the same thing. We killed all of those. There were 14 fee hike bills. We killed all of those. There were 2 bills to gut reforms we had just gotten in 2017. We killed all of those. And there were dozens more, creating unelected transit and toll agencies, one that was going to create a mega 7-county RMA over in the middle Rio Grande Valley where there's not even congestion. And we helped kill bills that were going to expand the powers of eminent domain and issue gobs of new bond debt. And there was one of those fee hike bills, by the way, for Bexar County. They wanted to increase your vehicle registration fee another $10. They already did it a few years ago. So that would have been $20 more now. And they wanted to increase the ATV sales tax here in San Antonio. We stopped that. And there was one to double our gas tax. So I've been a little busy. It's crazy what's going on around there. They will never stop. I'm telling you what. And we stopped every attempt to do this. These are a few glimmers of hope we got, and then I'll wrap up from the 86th session. We did get, finally, after many, many sessions, a ban on red light cameras.
Yay!
Yay!
So, red light camera tickets will be on. By the way, there are some contracts grandfathered in, but the criminal offense, it basically is optional for you to pay that fine, the way that the wording reads. So apparently, even if you get a ticket, if you don't pay it, there's no way for them to come after you for it. The cities won't tell you that, but that's what there was an amendment put on by one of our good guys on the House side that made sure that happened. We also ended tiered annexation, so basically now no city can annex you without a vote.
They're here! Yay!
And we got this other total transparency bill passed by Jared Patterson in the House and Angela Paxton in the Senate, It's going to help us get better transparency to understand the debt level and the system financing, which I think is going to help us eventually kill tolls and take tolls off the road when they're paid for. So what I have for you on action items before I go, got flyers with the action items on. And so what I'm going to put up here, she's going to hand out. I would also love it if you're not getting my emails. I don't share my list with anybody. I don't sell it to anybody. It's just you and I talking. And I try to keep it to just maybe 1 or 2 a month. But please sign up on that if you don't mind sending that around too, so y'all can get on my email list. But these are our top priorities. They are still our top priorities. You need to be talking to your state reps about this stuff, because look at their grades on our report card this session. There's your senators. There's your state reps. All of them just about an F. The only one that got an A was Kyle Bierman. So we need you to get involved. And if you want me to vet any candidates, we put out a voter guide, and I also do endorsements through our PAC. So we'd be happy to do that. We have got to clean house in San Antonio. We need some good candidates. And I also have a text message alert. If you want to text No Toll Texas to 94253, that's another way that we try to communicate with the grassroots. So with that, I thank you so much. I'm sure I don't have any time for questions.
Okay, Terry.
I'm not running for governor.
She's our legislative hit woman.